Good afternoon and good evening. This is Genevieve Aarons here with the Unbridled Live Talk Show. We've got special guest Joy Seymore returning back for week 2. We're so excited to have you. Oh, can you hear me? You can't hear me, right? Okay.
No, I can.
We were just sitting backstage talking about some of the weather up north because out here in Virginia, it's like pretty mucky. We're just in sludge land.
Mud
It's just
season,
mud.
yeah.
Yeah. And we'll be in mud season probably till end of February, get one more snow and then be back.
Wow. Yeah, so
Yeah.
our saying about Groundhog Day, which is what, Friday,
I think
is
so, yeah.
okay, so if the groundhog sees his shadow, we get 6 more weeks of winter. If he doesn't see his shadow, we get about another month and a half of winter.
I see what you did there. Yeah, no, for us, like, the problem, though, is all of the mud, and then you'll get, like
Yep,
it'll get
yep.
pretty windy and chilly and stuff, but it's just so mucky, man, and try being, like, blonde and not super coordinated, and you're walking in mud that's up to your ankles. It is so easy to tip over. So easy when you're 6 foot tall to just lose balance and go.
And the boot sucking mud is what
That's
gets
what I
me.
mean, like,
Yeah.
face first
Like
into
you
it.
take a step and your boot doesn't.
No.
Yeah.
It's worse when your boots fit. The
Yep.
rest of you goes down. But
Yep.
we wanted to come back and talk today about starting a horse under saddle when you get a horse that's unbroke, like a prospect, up to when you feel confident putting them in a position of learning games, right? So you have a couple that you've started under saddle, obviously. You've started many from what we talked about last week, but you have a couple right now that are still in the phase of being kind of like backed and brought under saddle. So what is your methodology? Like, what are you looking for as you start progressing? Do you have like something in your head that you're kind of working towards?
So we're at that stage right now with Ronan. Ronan is he's 16 years this year. A Connemara gelding who grew up pretty much out in a field.
Mhm.
He was actually a stallion prospect, so he was gelded late to start with, but he was never started. Um, and then his breeder lost her lease
Oh.
and had to find homes for her ponies. Um, and he ended up in Vermont with Sarah Thrasher, who
Mhm.
breeds Connemara's, and they sort of started him under saddle. They put a saddle on him, and they were working him in the round pen. They have a round pen, and they taught him. I mean, he knew how to lunge. Um, and he was wearing like a rope halter and kind of ground driving a little bit, kind of just on the circle. So like long lining.
Mhm.
Um, and he would walk, trot, and canter. When we went to see him about a year ago. Um, that's pretty much what all he was doing. He was wearing a Western saddle and he had a rope halter and he had been long lined and lunged in the round pen. Um, but basically when she got him, he was untouched. I mean, he was pretty much feral. Um, he's come a long way in the time that I've had him. Our weather hasn't been very cooperative. What I would normally do is try to work them at least 3 days a week. I don't like to drill them, even though he's not young. We're thinking of
Yeah.
him as young. I mean, she said he's basically 1,000-pound foal. You gotta
It's a good way
he
to think about it, right?
yeah,
If you bring in a horse that has not been handled consistently, they
yep.
don't have the mental maturity to show up every single day and be handled
And
consistently.
Tonks was the same way. When we got
Yeah.
Tonks, she was feral. And she was even more feral when we got her than he is now. So, I mean, she was like when we went to look at Tonks, um, I asked we got her from Shannon Shea, and I asked Shannon, "Oh, can we pick up her feet?" And she's like,
Yeah.
"I don't know." So we picked up her front feet, and she was fine. I picked up her back feet, and she kicked me twice. And then as we were leaving, John's like, "So we're not getting that one, right?" And I said, "Of course we're getting her."
That's how it always
But
starts.
I don't like to drill them.
Yeah.
When they're young in their brains, even if they're not young in their bodies, they're still young in their brains. Um, so like 3 or 4 days a week would be nice if we could manage it. With Ronan, it's been like maybe once a week
Yeah,
if we're lucky because the weather has just been so terrible. But he has just been responding. He's very smart and he's fine with it. He doesn't seem to forget what he's already learned,
that's
and
awesome.
he's coming along really well. And we basically go through um the steps. It depends a lot on the pony. Now I've had horses and ponies that we've done our first backing in the stall. So in a 12 by 12 space with a high ceiling, that's where you get on first.
Mhm,
But with both Tonks and Ronan, we didn't really worry about that. We have a small fenced in area, like our barnyard is basically sort of like a maybe 20 or 30-foot round pen
mhm.
area. So it's a pretty small area, but it's big enough to walk and trot in. And that's where we start them
That's yeah,
because it's a small enough space that they're not going to go anywhere, but it's bigger than the stall
yeah,
and you're not going to get squished as
yeah.
easily.
You got a little bit more
Um,
space to maneuver if they spin.
yeah. I mean, the stall, if you're having to hop on in the stall, it's a horse like I used to do that with my race horses.
Mhm.
Just get on in the stall so that they're just used to having the person on their back before you take them out into a bigger
I feel like
space.
they're pretty confident in a stall too. It's like, where does the horse feel
Right.
safest?
Yeah. And we always have so we're always working with two people,
Mhm,
somebody on the ground, and usually you want the person that the horse trusts the most on the ground. So
mhm.
I'm not usually the first one on their back
Yeah,
because I'm the one that's worked with them on the ground and I don't want to disappear.
yeah, exactly.
When you're on their back, you've disappeared.
Yeah.
They don't know where you've gone. And even if you're talking to them, they're still like, but where did you go? But if you're at their head, they're more confident, I feel,
Yeah,
and they
no,
don't
I'd agree.
mind as much. So Annie is usually my guinea pig. Annie gets on first. Um, and with Ronan, it's been a total non-event because he was backed before we got him, but he's now at the point where he's walking in that 20-30 foot barnyard area. He's walking circles. He had never had a bit in his mouth, so now he's had a bit.
Mhm.
Um, and he's wearing just a rubber snaffle. He started in a soft rubber snaffle, but he chewed his way through it. So we've swapped to a happy mouth and he's not chewing on that.
Yeah.
So,
That's I've
yeah,
never
he
heard of
chewed
him
it right
doing
down
that.
to the
That's
cable.
oh
Yeah.
my god.
um, and he's the first one I've had that's actually done that. I don't
Yeah.
quite know how he managed it, but
Special.
he's okay with the happy mouth. Um, and Tonks, we started in a happy mouth. I mean, I generally start them either in the soft rubber or a happy mouth. Um, I want something super mild. And I want them just to be used to like he's used to wearing the bit before we got on him and tried to steer. He was wearing the bit on the lunge line.
Mhm.
And we had the super loose side reins. You remember the picture of Hammy with the super loose side reins.
Yep.
Um, and he just so that they can occasionally get the feel of it. Like if they overturn their neck, they're gonna feel the rein.
Without,
And
like,
it
the
just
panic, yeah.
right. It's not tight. It's not pulling them into anything. It's just like a gentle reminder, okay, you gotta keep yourself fairly straight on the lunge line. So you're
Mhm.
not gonna twist your head completely around. You're gonna stay straight on the circle. And that's all they're for.
Yeah.
Um, and so he's gotten used to the contact a little bit with that. But when we get on, we just take up a super soft contact. I ride so I was taught at Fulmer to have very following hands.
Mhm.
Um, so there's contact, but it's soft and you're allowing the horse to move
Yeah.
through your hand. So you're not holding any contact in place. And then we just start to teach rein aids gently. And as the person on the ground walks the horse and uses the voice commands. So I'll say, walk on, and I'll have Annie just close her legs. I mean, she's already got her legs on him, so she's just going to close her legs like she would anytime she wants a horse to walk out. And you just gradually teach them from your voice to adapt to the aids. And he's now at the point where I'm on him. And the last time I rode him, Mike walked beside him, but pretty much at the end of the lead rope. Like we always work with a halter over the bridle
Mhm.
and like a 10-foot soft cotton lead rope.
Yeah. Just that
Um,
extra security blanket.
yeah, so he's just at the end of the lead rope, and pretty much Ronan is almost lunging, but not really,
Yeah.
because I don't want him out quite that far. But he's learning to move without the person on the ground moving with him, with a rider
Mhm.
under his. So I've heard this about Connemara's before, that they can be kind of hesitant about going forward under saddle because they feel you on their back and they're like, "Oh, I don't wanna drop my human, so I don't wanna move." So,
They care too
yeah,
much.
it's like they're, "Okay, is it okay to move?" So, he just needs to learn to move with a rider on his back
Yeah.
now, and he he hasn't shown any signs of exploding or taking off, and Tonks never did either. So, I mean, we just go slow
Yeah.
and gradually let them adapt, convert from voice commands to rein and leg. And we do everything, we try to, I mean, one of my major goals is to let the horse be successful. So we're not asking questions that they're going to say no to.
No, that's
We're
fair.
asking
Yeah.
questions that they can say yes to. We want them to always say yes and to say, okay, I'm good. Whereas, I'm not gonna force them to do something that they're gonna hesitate or not want to do, because I don't want to get into a battle with them, and I don't want them to get scared.
Yeah. I was gonna say, so like when you go out to work with your horse, how do you structure like goals in your head? Is it just what you try to create value with every small step? Or because I feel like there's lots of opportunity for people who are newer to bringing in horses where they're like, I have to accomplish X. And X could be something super
Yeah,
simple,
no, yeah,
but they get
well,
so stuck on
yeah.
that.
I mean, I don't yeah, I don't. I don't. We just let it flow.
Yeah.
So, we just will do I'm happy with 15 minutes of walking in a circle at this point.
Yeah.
When he gets past the 15 minutes of walking in a circle and he's ready to try trotting, then we'll try it. Um, and it's a question of, depends on the horse how we try that, whether we do that on the lunge line or one of the things that I want to try that I haven't done a ton of in the past, but Sarah does a lot of is ponying.
Yep.
So you're riding a pony and leading your pony, but with a rider.
Okay.
And I know a lot of thoroughbred stables in England do that
I was gonna
to
say a
start
lot of
their
people in
youngsters.
Europe and in
Yeah,
Ireland do.
they'll
Yeah.
start with a rider ponying,
Mhm.
um, so that you have some control and they can start to learn to trot under saddle, but they're with another horse and they're feeling the confidence from the other
Yeah.
horse. So I haven't tried that, but I thought I might try it with Ronan.
Yeah. I've done a lot of ponying just in general for fitness,
For
bringing
fitness,
my
we do
ponies
that
up.
because
Yeah.
it you can get twice as many ponies fit
Exactly.
in half the time. Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, I pony a lot because that way it takes me less time to
Well,
get
it's good, I think, for
multiples
mounted
fit.
games too, because our ponies have to be so on top of each other. It helps to
Right.
desensitize them to the contact. Yeah. Especially if you've got the mare gelding mix where I've had some melding issues.
Yep. Yep. And our guys, they do need to learn to get along. Ari
Yeah.
hates other ponies, but ponying her from Chloe, I mean, it scares Chloe because Ari attacked Chloe when we were trail riding last summer. Um, but she did it out of fear. It was a really weird situation. Ari was in front, Chloe was following her,
Mhm.
um, and we had to stop and wait. Somebody lost a boot in a pond, or it was like a pond on the trail. It was really watery. And so we had to stand there and wait. And both of these mares were just getting frustrated with standing and waiting. So Chloe turned like she was going to turn around and face the other way, and Ari kicked her. in the back end
Oof.
because Ari thought that Chloe was turning around to kick her,
Yeah,
and
just a misread.
Ari's super, super sensitive. So, now Chloe's a little bit afraid of Ari, which I don't blame her at all. Um, so I can't pony Chloe from Ari, but I can kind of pony Ari from Chloe if I'm careful. But, you kind of have to work through it. I mean, they have to be able to get along.
Yeah.
We
Oh,
try.
we've got Kim hopping in here.
Hi, Kim.
Good evening, Kim. I guess really quick, let's address the elephant in the room. Miss Carly, we love you, but she's just not on tonight because she wasn't feeling great. Totally understand since I got a pass. We've got Joy, who's utterly wonderful, and Genevieve's going to bring enough energy for the both of us, or at least try. It's been a whirlwind here. Carly, you commented. Awesome. Hi. If they do get scared, how do you handle that? How do you encourage them to come down or recover and come back mentally?
So it's, I mean, anytime they get scared, you talk to them, you pet them, you're quiet, you try to um give them confidence again. So like with Chloe and Ari, it's a weird situation. That's not something I don't normally put ponies in that kind of situation where they're going to get kicked by another pony.
Yeah.
It was just really, it was just a bad. Ugh. It just didn't, so with Chloe, it's just it was, and I've known her, I've had her for 10 years, so she's like, I just talk to her and pet her, and you run your hand along the crest of their neck. They like to be scritched. Chloe has a spot that she loves to be scritched. And if you scritch her in that spot, she goes into this zone where she's just like, and I mean, so if I have a pony that gets scared, like if they're spooking at something or they're scared of something and they don't want to pass it on the trail, that's a different kind of situation. That's a situation where you just have to stay confident and just ride them forward. I mean, when they're scared of something and they're
Mhm.
not going forward because of it, it doesn't matter. You have to go forward. You just have to ride them forward, and
Yeah.
you just have to um not. It's not. You don't let them get away with it. That's not how we think. It's a matter of, well, we got to go buy this, even if you're afraid of it. So we're just going to talk about it, and we're going to keep moving forward as much as
Create
we
the
can.
energy, create some
Yeah.
structure in the
Or
bridle.
circle if you
Yeah,
have to
exactly.
circle, whatever you have to do. But if you're out in the middle of a trail and they decide that they're like Ariana, they're not crossing a stream, what are you gonna do?
It's the same
You
thing like
have
refusing
to.
a cross country jump, right? You don't wanna just be like,
Yeah.
"Oh, okay, we're done here."
No,
Like,
yeah, you have to come back at it. And
yeah,
that's kind of a different, I mean, I don't ever like them to stop at a fence because I don't ever want them to be in a situation where they would stop at a fence. I mean,
exactly.
I don't wanna ask those kind of questions
And that's where
because I
yeah,
don't wanna, like I said, I wanna set them up for success,
mhm.
not failure.
Well, and that comes
So,
back to, like, if your creek crossing is your issue or water
yep,
is an issue, we should be breaking it down earlier on, even if we're on the ground, creating opportunities for them to drive through and cross something where they have the most confidence or with another horse leading maybe. Like,
yep,
same thing so that you can build up to it when you go cross country and you're jumping. You really shouldn't be just, like, running at something
right,
that's, gonna intimidate them. We break it back down. And
yep.
you shouldn't go up to, like, a Bull Run Creek crossing that's, like, 40 feet wide. You start with something manageable.
And I mean, we have puddles that if there's a puddle on the ground, I mean, it's super easy to say, "Oh, let's just go around it." But we don't go around puddles because Chloe hates water. We go through puddles all the time.
Yeah.
We
I
walk through
feel
the
like
puddle.
that's an Arab I don't know, Connemara's aren't supposed to be, but every Arab I've ever had has had issues with water.
Ariana has issues with
That's
water.
problems. Claudia, mine only fight at home. Winnie and Galaxy love each other off site, but they can't even do pony pairs at home without it being big drama.
Ha. Now see, mine are actually, well, yeah, I guess it depends. I mean, I feel like when they're at a competition, there's so much more going on
They're so
that,
disrupted that,
yeah,
like,
and they
anything just
also
to bring them
become
back.
way more attached to each other.
Yeah.
"Oh, I know this pony from home, so I love you now, even though I hate you at home." Yeah. So, yeah, but, yeah, at home, it's almost like, how people at home, I mean,
It's
everybody
true. I
has
think
their
people get
worst behavior
territorial.
at
Yeah.
home
No, it's
because
true.
that's where people love you, and it's okay for you to have your bad behavior at home.
Like Winnie and Galaxy are like, "It's gonna be okay. We
Yeah,
can
it's
fight now because
okay.
I know you're
We
still
can
gonna
fight
be in
at
the stall
home because
tonight."
yeah, exactly, exactly. Yep, yep, yep.
Carly, my problem is increased speed without asking for it and becoming emotional, bolty when
When
she's
she's
scared.
scared. So
Yeah. She's an
she's like
energetic
she's an
reaction.
Arab saddlebred cross, and she's probably got, like, energy to burn. So it's gonna be a matter with her of just you're not I don't know. I mean, to me, I would start super, super slow. Do lots of walking under saddle, do lots of trot, 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 just trot in a
Mhm.
circle. Don't even think about games yet. How many weeks do you have before we actually have to play games, right? So back up from
Exactly.
there and don't think about it. Don't even think about it. Don't ask her to gallop. Don't ask her to even canter. Just
Yeah.
trot. Just walk and trot and be super, super chill with everything you do with her. You're going to have to take your brain out of it and just like we talked about last week, hum a little tune in your brain, in your head and da 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 da, and not the fast circus music, but something slow.
I wonder too if, and so I'm not sure, Carly, if you have been, but if you're doing any long lining, sometimes if you set up distractions, things like, let's say you have games equipment, set up some long lines so that you can get behind them. Sometimes what I'm learning, and I learned this with vaulting in this past season, sometimes the trigger is really like the disappearance of the rider or the
Yep,
discomfort with where you're at in the process of being either on the horse or not being up beside them and giving them that confidence. And then some horses react by going backwards, some react by spooking, some react by going forwards. It's just their natural reaction to discomfort. But maybe putting some long lines on and really working on getting separated from her so that the confidence has to come from her, but the control is still coming from you. Because it's very hard for a horse to pick up speed and everything on long lines, in my opinion, because you're kind of actively working with them. They still have this anchor that's there that says, "Hey, you really can't get away from me. You shouldn't be taking off." So in their head, they're like, "Okay, she's back there, but I have to confront this alone." I feel like
yep.
anyway, that has helped me in the past with building some confidence on horses that are maybe a little bit flighty and reserved.
Well, I wonder too if it would help, like we were talking about, having your person, like with Ronan, Annie's on his
Mhm.
back, I'm on the ground, and he
Yeah,
knows me. And so having a person, somebody else on her back a little bit and having Carly on the ground with her, comforting her and keeping
doing
her
some lunging, doing
content,
some other
doing
things.
some
Yeah,
groundwork, just,
yeah,
like walking on the lead line. Every single time I lead my ponies out to the pasture, it's a lesson.
yeah,
It's not la la la, the end of the lead rope. It's okay, take a few steps, halt. This is what whoa means.
yep,
Stand. And then when I want him to walk on. Because Ronan doesn't know what clucking means.
yeah,
So walk on, you know, learn what voice commands are every single day. Every day we go out to the pasture, we're learning. We're always learning. But yes, exactly. Confidence for her. Yeah. So if you can put somebody else on her, somebody super quiet and super chill, who's a really, really good rider, you don't want somebody on her who's going to upset her while you're on the ground because then
yeah.
she's going to feel betrayed by you.
It's
They
true though.
do,
I
redheaded mares,
know.
seriously. She's like, "What did you do to me, mom? Who is this idiot?" You gotta find
I
somebody
was gonna
put
suggest
Genevieve
throwing
on her.
Thomas on her, but then now I'm
Well,
like,
is
maybe the
Tommy
read will
gonna
be
can
wrong.
Tommy be chill enough? Tommy
Exactly.
yeah, and, I mean and he's big too. You
Yeah,
gotta
so
find
is
somebody
Genevieve right now, so
yeah, you gotta find somebody who's super chill, super quiet, and
yeah,
super soft-handed. And just walk, trot, just go around in circles.
yeah,
How far away are you from Genevieve? Because we're coming down at the end of February.
about 45 minutes to an hour, but we could always go up there. There's an
Yeah,
indoor, so
yeah.
It's a nice place to practice. We could maybe take one of the days and we'll go up and practice at her house
Yeah.
if
But
we can get
definitely
permission, yeah.
you want and do a lot of groundwork with her. Build her confidence with groundwork. Do walk her over poles, walk her through games equipment, teach her the turns, teach her to stop and turn on her haunches on the ground and then transfer that under saddle. Maybe she's never had that on the ground training. Maybe she doesn't, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
And that can always help. We've been fortunate lately in having horses that are not overly flighty.
So
Belle
another
was,
thing
but
I was thinking about when I thought on this issue, I don't know, I'd seen a video and I was like, yeah, that reminds me of what I used to do with Ash when he was a baby because I started him under saddle. And Ash had the big, and he's massive, right? He's like 17 to 73. He's
goodness.
huge. And he's super long back. So he was just this big horse. And he would get kind of rolling. And it was very hard to manage his cadence and get it consistent because his stride was so large and he would take up so much arena so quick. Or when he would try to compact himself, it was just so much effort. But anyway, I had a trainer that told me to consistently try sitting 2 beats and then post, and then stand 2 beats and then sit, and go back into your post and disrupt it. The horse gets used to a cadence if you're posting, and that cadence, very often, they'll be like, "Okay, she's there," and then they'll start speeding up, or, "Okay, she's there,"
So
and so
that gives me
they
that's a
read the consistency,
reminder
right?
of a way that I slow horses down. So let's say you're doing a rising trot, right?
Mhm.
And your pony's getting quicker and quicker and quicker. You need to hesitate in the saddle. Like you're going up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, but it's not 2 beats down. It's just a longer down. So
And it
you're
feels weird,
disrupting.
guys.
You're
Like
disrupting the cadence. You're
yes.
slowing your post, your rise in order to slow your horse. And it's that moment of hesitation. And when you hit that saddle, you want to brace your back at the same time. So
Mhm.
almost a half halt. So it's
Yep.
a deep seat, slow your rise. Don't let yourself get into a boom, 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 boom with your horse.
Exactly.
Yeah, so totally, yes.
Maintaining
Your
that
rhythm
cadence.
can affect your horse's rhythm. And you wanna and to have somebody on the ground to help you with this
Mhm.
is you gotta
Huge with a count
find somebody.
even. Yeah.
Because yeah, even just to have somebody there saying 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, and slowing you down so that you're not getting lost in your head while she's getting lost in her head.
Yep.
So, just to have, like even if you go to, like, a clinic, a dressage clinic, find somebody who can help you and just work through
It's the pace,
slow.
and your
Yep.
horse, if you sit all the time, your horse will get used to that, and your
Well, and you
body.
don't want to because that's hard on their back
Yeah,
too.
I agree with you. And your body will naturally, as you start riding and you become a more adept rider, you will naturally go with the energy and the flow of the horse,
Yeah.
right? And your goal, whatever cadence you're in, even if you're in the canter, really, you can do a whole lot of half halt with just your body by just
Oh, yeah.
resisting the motion of the horse. So the horse is like, whoa, they weren't quite with me there. And they kind of like think back to the
Yep.
rider. And it's just that hesitation that you're looking for. And very often, as you work this, particularly with like dressage horses, when you're trying to keep your horse in a very clean cadence, you can just do that very mild disruption in how like long you're posting or how long you're
Yep.
sitting or in your canter and how you like bring your body, taut and back into the saddle. And that can the horse will start to get a read for it. So it's worth trying, I think, even with pony like Poppy, because you probably are a very soft and quiet kind of ride with her, and purposefully disrupting that motion and seeing how she reacts to it and then go right back to it.
Yep.
It's not like you stay there, but you do enough to be like, did she think about what I just accomplished or what I'm asking for?
So one of the things, and I don't even know if Annie's on or listening, but one of the things that Annie had to learn was the difference, especially in the canter, between a driving seat and a slowing seat. You can have your seat in the saddle at the canter, and you can be pushing with your seat, or you can be holding with your seat. And you have to learn the difference. The video that we have of Annie the first time she rode Belle, she was trying to slow her down. Do
Mhm.
you remember this, Annie? You were trying to sit and slow her down, but what you were doing was actually driving with your seat. And when we talked about that while you were riding her, you were able to stop doing it. And she came back. Yeah, yeah, sitting like a sack. And she came back immediately. It was like Belle was running off with her until Annie figured out that she was actually driving with her seat instead of slowing her down with her back. So there's a difference between
There's such a
a
big
driving
difference.
seat and a holding seat. And yes, sitting like a sack, making your back like jello, but at the same time, it's concrete jello.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? It's
Yeah,
like
I think there's
you're
there's, like, an active
holding.
seat, and then
Yep,
there's that
yep,
that
that lump,
intentional
the lump.
the biggest, yeah, eye opener for me was when I was doing jujitsu, and I was doing it with a girl who was significantly smaller than me. She was, like, 5'4", I'm 6'1", I am a tanky mama, and this girl is so petite, and she was on mount with me, which means that I'm on the ground and she would have had me pinned down, right? And when she sat taut and maintained her body weight, it was very easy for me to disrupt and throw her over. And she's like, "But just wait." And when you sink down like that sack of
Yep,
potatoes and
yep,
you use all your weight, it is very hard, even somebody who is significantly lighter than you, for you to
yep,
disrupt them and move them because they're completely out of motion, right? There's all of the weight is sunk down. There's no space for you to maneuver. And that just registered with me because I was like, "Oh my gosh, I literally cannot move under you. I can't get any sort of
because yep,
advantage
yep,
because of how heavy she became."
yep,
And when I had to do the same thing and I would have to do it with men who were bigger than me, it was crazy to just realize, okay, this is what I'm doing to my horse when I get
yep,
into that seat where I'm active and I'm riding and I'm galloping,
yep,
right?
yep,
We're so
yep.
often we're up out of the saddle and we're taught and we're giving the horses back so much freedom and ability for them to pick up speed or to maneuver under us. But we have such a tool that we don't use with our body weight when we just sink down and
That's
we
it.
stop moving with that
Yep.
motion. We just get heavy. Like I don't know how else to describe it, but it's just like, whoa, okay.
One of the first things that I teach when I'm teaching beginners is how to use your seat and back to control your horse, because I want them off my pony's faces. I don't want beginners hanging on their
Yeah.
faces. So I put them on Ari, and Ari is super, super sensitive to seat.
Mhm.
And I'm like, okay, you're walking. I want you to feel the 4 beats of the walk underneath you. So you just let your seat bones, sit in the saddle and you're feeling the beats of the walk. And then I'm like, okay, now what I want you to do is stretch up tall with your upper body and make your seat bones still in the saddle and make your back like an iron rod. And Ari will stop dead as soon as I do that.
Yeah.
All you have to do to stop that horse is sit. And they're like, how do you do that? And I'm like, it's your seat. She's
Yeah.
trained. It's not just training. Any horse, when you stop following, they'll stop. It's if you're following with your seat and you stop following and you stiffen your back, they're either going to fight it, which maybe is what Poppy is doing, or they're going to stop because it's no longer comfortable for them to walk.
And
So,
I think that's where, like, Carly, she's putting the foundation in place and, like you were
yep,
saying, get back to the walk, but that is
yep,
the kind of thing you should be looking to develop with your horse. Things that people just don't even think, "All right, I should be teaching my horse to stop off seat,
off the seat. Yep,
off something so basic," but really once they start to, like, recognize it, it translates into all the other
yep.
gaits.
All we have to do to come down out of a canter is stop following the canter. Just
Mhm.
stiffen the seat for a second and we're down to a trot. That's all it takes.
A classic
And
half
that's
halt, right?
yep,
Really
yep,
is the
yep,
seat and stiffening of the spine, stiffening of the seat,
yep,
support of
yep,
the legs, and
yep,
stiffening of the hands. I had a beginner rider that had gotten on one of the ponies and I was demonstrating games and I was like, do a half halt. And they're like, I hadn't heard of a half halt. What's a half halt?
yep.
And there's a lot, I think, of riding that's going on nowadays where they're not, like you're
Nobody's
saying,
learning the
like,
basics.
yeah,
Yep,
giving them the really foundation,
yep,
like seat, hand, like what are
yep,
your actual aids? What am I going to battle with
yep.
here? I'm not just
And
staying on.
we start with how many steps in a stride of walk? How many steps in a stride of trot? Can you feel the 1, 2? And
Yep.
did you know that your horse is jumping from one pair of legs to the other in every stride of trot?
Yeah.
And that's what the bounce is. And can you feel that inside hind hitting the ground? When that inside hind hits the ground, that's when you put your leg on and you say, "Okay, push off with that inside hind." Yeah, and true, half halts are different for different horses. You need a bigger half halt with a bigger horse, like, probably like Ash.
Yeah. A
Yeah,
lot more
massive
support in the
half
front.
halt. Yep, yep. But with Ariana, it doesn't take much of anything, and you hardly have to touch her face.
Yep.
And yeah, a Belle Belle didn't really know what a half halt was. Belle was a Pelham pony, and she was never gonna be anything but a Pelham pony because she just something happened to Belle in her early life, and we just weren't gonna get past that.
It's where we are with Euro. I mean, I can put him in a
Yep.
snaffle and flat
Yep.
him at home, but the second games equipment is out there,
Yeah.
if there's not a curb chain, there's no respect. And it's been
Right.
years, and you get to a point where you're like, "Why fight this when my horse just clearly has a dead mouth?" And it's from the,
And
15
it's
years
not his
before I
fault.
got him.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Like, what can you do? But
Well, like, Carol Ann's pony, the gray pony Zeke,
Zeke, yep,
has a cut across his
across his
tongue.
tongue where it
Yeah.
had been, yeah, just dug
Yeah.
in from
Yeah.
a thin bit.
So, I
And
mean,
it's like,
sometimes you have baggage, the ponies come with baggage, and you just have to do what you can with what you have, which again goes
mhm.
back to you ride what you have in the barn and, um, but you have to ride them differently, um, and yeah, I'll bet Annie would do really well on Poppy.
Yeah, Poppy would be fun.
Yeah, Annie's that kind of rider that she can ride the nutso nutsy
Things
nutsy
things
cuckoo.
with a lot of energy. I think Annie has a very quiet seat. And
Right.
I think that's the thing I've realized too, is that some people just innately have kind of the hot seat. Some people innately
Yep.
have the really quiet seat. It's like some people are very comfortable with the that sounds like Jen. The sack of the potatoes. Like I can be a
Yep.
sack of potatoes all day, but I can't be the person who maybe like makes a really quiet horse hot. I remember riding Chip, my Bay
Yep.
Arab before he
Yep.
retired. And it was the same thing, right? I would get on him from my main mount and I'd be like, oh my gosh. And he was my first games
He
pony,
doesn't
but
go anywhere.
he just doesn't
Yep.
go anywhere. And when I'd
Yep.
have to be driving him, I wasn't very
Yep.
successful. And I also was just a terrible rider at that cadence. Like I need something with innate energy for me.
I like a horse with an engine. They
Yeah.
have to have their own engine. That's something I look for in a pony or a horse. I can't stand lazy. I just
Yeah.
can't. I just can't deal with it.
I want the work ethic
It
there.
takes too
I'm
much
showing up,
energy.
like
I would much rather have a pony that wants to run off with me than a pony that just wants to be a slug. I
Yeah.
just can't stand the slugs.
Have you ever had one that was sluggy and you had to try to, like, instill a work ethic in it?
Minnie's a little bit of a slug sometimes. Minnie and I don't get along. I mean, I've ridden Minnie a lot to get her fit, and I'm not a fan. I just
Yeah.
Annie loves Minnie, but I'm like, "Oh my goodness, this horse is so much work." And she also hits the ground like a ton of bricks. And I have a really bad back, and that
Mhm.
hurts my back to ride her. So, I think that might be part of it is my attitude of this pony's gonna be uncomfortable, and I don't wanna ride her because I
Just
just don't
like
like her.
if I don't have to. But the thing
Yeah,
is there's a time like that this comes back to just because a pony doesn't work for you doesn't mean it's not perfect for another rider where that's
exactly.
where they're gonna succeed because they're the kind of person that needs to be instilling energy into their horse to give them
Yep.
confidence, to give the rider confidence and the horse confidence.
And I know I always talk about what's you ride what you have in the barn, but there might also come a time when you have to say, "I am not the right person for this pony," or "This pony is not the right pony for me at this time in my life, and it's time to sell this pony." And I think that's really hard for some people. Some people really believe, "No, no, no, you buy a pony, you keep it for the rest of its life."
Yep.
I've always believed in buying them, training them, and selling them, but, in my old age, I've gotten attached. But Annie bought a horse a few years ago, a pony a few years ago, that was a really cool pony, but she wasn't Annie just wasn't there, like, where that pony what that pony needed
At
then.
the time, yeah.
Yeah, and we ended up selling her to Jenna Bunce,
Mhm.
and Blue is doing now eventing.
Really? Oh
She's
my
no longer,
gosh.
yeah, and she's got a bunch of little kids that lease her,
Yeah.
and she's started eventing, and she's a completely different horse.
That's fabulous. That's the whole point,
She
right?
had been used so hard for barrels that her brain was just fried on
Yep.
games, and she'll play games, but you have to be really, and the thing with Jenna is she's ridden so many thoroughbreds that she could handle the way Blue reacted in
That brain.
games,
Yep.
and she could just ride her through it. But it gets to the point where it's just you feel like the pony's not having fun, but Blue now just loves her job, and sometimes that's what you have to do. You have to, maybe sometimes you have to realize that this pony is not meant for this job and not
Yeah.
working out. She's you need to find a different home.
And that's the
And
joy of
and
leasing
that's not
too.
it's not a failure.
Yeah.
It's understanding what you have and understanding how to move it along to somebody who can use it.
I agree 100%. I mean, leasing a horse for a season to me has always been super good to give perspective. Like, this is a great time for me. I've got a lot of ponies going out on lease and I have to step back for a little bit, but it's good because by the end of it, I'll be able to be like, okay, where do I want to be? Where are the horses at? How are they doing with their current riders? Is it better than they could be doing with me? Like, these are all things to take into account and evaluate. And like, am I going to be the ideal home? Is this where, and usually, yeah, sure, that's the answer. But always be kind of questioning yourself because to me that's good ownership and that's being a good horsewoman is taking into consideration, okay, needs of the horse, my own
Yep.
capability, my time, my schedule, what I can give the horse. Some horses, honestly, it's like, is this the best region for me to have the pony? There's ponies that don't do well with certain flies, don't do well with the humidity, et cetera, et cetera. Like, I really get stuck when I'm talking with newer owners and they're like, "Well, I bought this horse and this is the horse, my
You have
soul
to make
horse
it
for the
work.
rest of my
Yeah.
life and it must work." And
Yeah.
it's like, "Yeah, but it's tossing you every day. You're going to get hurt, you're going to get scared." And think about, maybe a rider who's slightly in a different position will be able to take that horse and then make it into something for the next level that's safe or happy. And you could get something that you would be enjoying so that you don't give up on the sport or what you love.
There's a definite tendency for people to overhorse themselves,
Yeah.
which really, as an instructor, I've seen so many times, and it's so frustrating. And I've had to talk people out of horses that they really wanted. Oh, yeah, good job. Yeah, that's exactly it,
Carol
Carol Ann.
Ann,
And
that
you
is
are really good
it.
at that. Yeah.
Mhm.
You put that basic training, you put the dressage on them, and then see what job that pony's happy at.
Yep.
And, if it's, and yeah, I've seen you do that with ponies, and it's brilliant.
That's so
That you're
Carol
you're
Ann, just
not,
for audio recording, she said, "When I get a pony, I put basic training on it and decide what job the pony needs. If it's not what I wanna do, find a home that fits."
yep.
Right? It's that simple. It's like applying for a job and you start working there and you're like, "I'm not cut out for customer service. Like, maybe I should be working internally." I mean,
Yeah, and
it's
that would
not
be like,
bad.
if I got a pony that I thought I was gonna turn into a games pony, and it turned out to be a slug, and it was gonna just be happier being a pleasure pony or what, a little show
Yeah,
pony, then yeah, by all means, let's sell it for that because it's worth more money that way anyway. Then
sure.
yeah, you're not marrying the horse.
I mean, I saw a post on Facebook, it was just like on one of the groups, and it was like, are you one of those people that when your horse can't, or, maybe your horse isn't safe and can't be ridden anymore, but now you're not willing to just put the money into feeding it and making sure that it's happy in the field because it doesn't need to be ridden to be happy, but you're the person who took it on as the owner. And we're going da 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 da. And I'm like, okay, but we have finite resources as human beings here, and if this horse is not working for this particular rider, then no, pouring monthly board and vet expenses and everything else into a horse that it's not like it's a horse that you've had for 30 years and it has a sentimental
Right,
there and it's invested in the family. Like I bought a horse, it didn't work out. I'm not going to just sit and hold on to it because I've now
right.
invested in the horse. Like, go find a
And
place where it's happy.
if it's sound or it can do another job, like we had a
Yeah.
pony, Moxie, that Annie bought, because
That
it's just
chestnut we saw
she had
last week.
uh, Yeah. So Moxie had been used hard and was not real sound
Mhm.
and wasn't going to work out for what Annie wanted to play games with her still, but she wasn't going to be able to do it at the level that Annie wanted to do. And even though Moxie was trying hard and she was a good girl, it just wasn't going to happen. Yeah, Moxie was the white poa
Oh,
um
yeah, yeah,
that
yeah,
we had in
okay.
2020.
Yep.
We ended up finding a home for her with a little girl who just wants to walk and trot around her farm. And I was like, so Moxie's bucking people off. Is she really going to work out for this little girl? And I said, take her for 30 days. Okay. Don't ask her to
Yes.
canter. See how it goes. If she doesn't work out, we'll take her back. The people absolutely over the moon adore her. She's working out great. They're injecting her knees so that they can
Oh
continue to
my
use
god.
her. And she's like 19 years old. But this was the perfect home for her,
Yeah.
and that's what she needed. She didn't need to keep pushing and playing games. She needed to step down. She needed a step
Yep.
down job. And like Tonks, we've had Tonks. I promised Tonks when we got her that she was going to be, she would have a forever home with us. Then she got hurt. We brought her back from that. She got hurt again. And she just wasn't staying sound. She wasn't ever
Mhm.
going to be sound. And I tried really hard to find like a broodmare lease where I could, get a foal out of her, get her back. It didn't work out. And I was just like, ugh. And then Sarah Thrasher was she had sold somebody a Connemara pony, and that pony's companion had just died. And she said, I'm looking for a companion for this lady for her pony. And
Yeah.
she was down in Rhode Island. And I said, okay. And we put Tonks on the trailer. We brought her to these people. They don't need to ride her.
No.
They just want her to be there to keep their pony company. And Tonks is happy. She's sassy. The lady's like, you did warn me about the poitude. And I'm like, yeah, she's not a Connemara. She's got aptitude. But so even though I told Tonks that she was never going to have to leave, I let her go because
Mhm.
this was a better place for her
Yep.
than just sitting here. And she loves her new companion and she's doing great.
Yeah.
And this will be hopefully that will be her lifetime home.
Yeah.
But you can't I mean horses are it's different. I mean, there are plenty of people in the world who are dealers and rotate through horses and I've
Mhm.
done that. Um and that's not necessarily what I want to do, but that doesn't mean that every single horse that comes in my barn is going to stay for the rest of its life either.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Particularly if you think about it, like, even if you have the horse that you wanna keep for, the rest of its working life, there might come a point in that horse's career where the best thing for it is to go to the neighbor's house where they've got a 5-year-old that's gonna dote on him and just walk trot. You just get to a point where it's like, "Alright,
Step
setting
down.
aside
Yep.
my needs, what does the horse need? Is it a step down? Maybe the companion
Yep.
opportunity." It doesn't mean that you lose connection with them, you put a good contract in place, but, like, do what's best for the pony.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, definitely is a good it's always a good reminder. I think about that too with Ash, my big, beautiful warm blood gelding who
Who
got
got yeah.
EPM and
Yeah.
all I mean, so many different issues, right in his prime at, like, 10 years old. Um, and he was at our house, and he just wasn't getting, used quite as much, and for me, I like to have things that I'm really engaged with, and I like to have all that natural energy, and after the EPM, he just didn't have, like, that natural confidence. He really needs ridden, like, pretty aggressively. You've got to give him the push to go out there. And so I found a local lease, and she's doing training level dressage on him, has her daughter riding him, doing a bunch of trails, doing like some basic field hunting, and they're having a complete ball with him. He's getting, used 5 times a week. He's getting fussed with. He's getting all of the special like acupuncture and massage therapy and everything. And it's the best possible situation for him. And it might be a free lease, for the next 10 years. I don't care, but he's
Right.
happy,
Right.
right?
Right.
I saw
And,
a comment continue, you're right.
it's okay.
Um, Claudia, it's hard to find a balance between knowing when to take a step back and work on the basics of the discipline and when to just accept that the horse isn't suited for that particular discipline.
And that is hard. There's a fine line because, I mean, one of the big things that I believe in is you ride what you have in the barn and you just do what you want to do with what you have in the barn. But that might mean that you don't do the level that you thought you were going to do. So
Yeah.
maybe you stick with that horse, but maybe that horse is never going to be that preliminary event horse or the open games pony that you were hoping to have.
Yep.
Maybe that horse is just going to toddle around in over 25 and or whatever. I mean, or you move on. I mean, but going back to basics can kind of give you that answer.
Yeah.
If
I
you
think
take
for
take
me,
it back.
like, yeah, get back to basics
Yep.
and the fundamentals. Do I feel safe on the horse?
Yep.
Because honestly, like, I'm a good rider. I don't like to be on something where I feel like I'm gonna die. I don't on Hero. I mean, my mom would be like, my mom might, but for me personally, like, I get on him and I know that we have a good working relationship. But if I were to get on and feel like he could explode at any point and rear up and flip on me or go
Yeah.
off bucking, those are things that like I don't want to take on because I want to just have like a good foundation of even on a really bad day, generally I can have fun because I'm not going to get, hurt.
Yeah. And I think there comes a time in your life for everybody when that becomes more important and
Yeah.
it's less important to ride the feisty stander, the one that stands on two legs at the starting line all the time.
Yep.
Um, and becomes more important to just have fun. And,
Yeah.
and so maybe then you do have to either, you do what you can. We did dressage as much as we could with Belle. And I was hacking her, I was riding her on the flat towards the end. And yeah, Claudia, right. I refuse to ride anything that I feel is genuinely dangerous, and I totally agree with you there, Claudia.
Yeah.
No more for me. I
That's
used
to a
to.
point.
And yeah, I mean, I was talking I work at a elementary middle school library.
Mhm.
So I see 300 kids at various times during the week. And I can't remember names. And I apologize to them all the time. And today it was, I'm sorry, kids. This is what happens when you have too many head injuries. Always wear a helmet, kids.
I always
And s
wonder, I'm like, am I really as sharp? I don't think I'm as sharp as I was when I was 20 because definitely have had 3 pretty solid concussions since then. I'm like,
I've
now
lost
there's like the
count.
loading circle in Jen's
Yeah,
head when I'm
yeah.
processing things like,
And you get to the point where you shouldn't. You
yeah,
shouldn't, right. And yeah, yeah, and
Claudia, not
well,
because
yeah,
I'm not necessarily able to, but because I'm not willing to sacrifice my life or my ability to ride my own horse, who I just trust and enjoy. And I think that's huge. Like once you trust and enjoy your own horse, like the discipline, it kind of like you get to a point where it's like a partnership, right? And you feel comfortable and confident in pushing both of you to the max level that you both are capable of doing together. But when you're putting together that partnership on the front end, you're trying to figure out if there's any viability for a discipline, let's say mounted games. That's where I think you've got to continually step back and assess like, where do I sit? Am I willing to give up the sport because the horse is clearly unhappy, spooky, scared? Like it's going to take so much time to get there. And we only have I mean, for me, if it's more than 2 seasons, it's a definite no for me. Like Hero, on the other hand, says Genevieve, who has Hero, has been doing games for 10 years. We're just getting there, guys. But I had other horses at the same time that I was capable of competing and riding in tandem. Um, I think really you that 2-season rule for me, the first season we should be making some significant headway in the foundation of the horse, and by the second season I should feel safe doing some basic games on them, and ideally more, competitive by the end of the second season. I love Carly. That's
see,
literally this is like my head matrix for dealing with any horse that's not my spotty.
I think it a lot depends on the background of the animal.
It's true
Like,
too, yeah.
we have, Rocky. Rocky is the same age as Ronan, um, and he came to us, but Rocky hasn't been touched in 3 years. He was broke. He was a pony party pony.
Yeah.
he's handled he'll walk, trot, and canter. Um, we have no idea what he's going to be like when we start asking him to play games because we've gone through like around and around and around in circles with him since we got him. Um, he turned out to have like super thin soles
Mhm.
and he needs shoes with pads. And when we first got him, he was barefoot and the ground was hard and he just wasn't staying sound. And we x-rayed his feet and we thought navicular and nope, he just needs shoes with pads. But by the time he came sound, it was like November, you know. So we've introduced games equipment, but basically all we've been doing with him is super basic
Yeah.
walk, trot, canter, circles, but he has will put out cones and flags. He has a fear of whips,
Mhm.
so we thought he'd be afraid of flags, but so far he's been really good about the flags. And it's we just do everything slow. So we're not introducing anything at speed. We're introducing cones and flags on a trot circle. And Annie will trot him on a big circle and just pull a flag out of a cone and then go on. Hero. Yeah.
She's onto a hero thing.
But it's just a matter of doing it very slowly. We're introducing everything slowly to Rocky, and it's not a matter of
You can keep going. I'm just putting it up there so that people know there's chat.
um and it's we're not going to push him
Yeah,
and add speed until he's ready to add speed. I mean, we add speed. I feel like speed is the last thing that you add when you're teaching
always.
games. You teach them the movements, you teach them to play. Or, I mean, and we teach stuff without any equipment at all. We teach turn on the haunches. We teach, that we teach the turns without anything to turn around. And then when you start to turn around equipment, your turns are already there.
Carol Ann, I
Yeah.
couldn't
Oh
carry
yeah.
a whip
Zeke.
on
Yeah.
Zeke for years. Clearly,
Yeah.
he had a history. You just have to respect it. And that's so
Yeah.
true. Like, do you want to reinvent the wheel and trying to break down a horse that has a full history by the time you get them? I mean, a lot of games riders don't have the luxury of bringing up a horse that they back themselves from a young age. They know all the history on the horse. So I think, yeah, definitely pick and choose your battles.
Well, I think a lot of times games ponies are rejects from other disciplines.
Yeah.
So you're kind of ending up with whatever, cast off people don't want. Because, I mean, and especially for us, because we can't afford to buy anything fancy. So, yeah, we just end up with cast offs and you make do with what you have. But we start them all the same way
Yeah.
slow, circles, dressage, teach them to turn, teach them to understand seat and leg, you know.
It's yeah, just the foundation and then going into games, it's the same thing though. We just take all of the time that you put into building all those basic foundational building blocks and you do the same thing with the games equipment. Now we're introducing
Yep.
barrels, we're introducing
Yep.
cones, we're introducing balloons and all of the different activities. And it really I was working with we ended up naming him Castile or Cass, the golden pony. I was gonna call him Castiel, but mom can't pronounce it, and I love her so it's gonna be Castiel. But he's definitely been hit and he's really anxious when you're kind of like throwing your arm, right? So right now, like under saddle, that's just one of the basic foundational things. Like just have the rider moving, actively interacting with objects off the horse. Like he's not obviously malicious about it, but it's scary. And he just needs the time for it to become something. He's like, okay, I know that you're not intending on hurting me.
Yep. And you just don't throw it in.
Rochelle
Ah,
says, Joy, what's your process to start a pony to turn on their haunches? We're working with a pony that didn't make it in the hunter world, starting slowly, and she's doing well. Just wondering specifically about turns.
so the easiest way to teach a turn on the haunches is to have a wall or a fence.
Fence, yeah.
Especially an indoor wall helps, but if you don't have an indoor, use the fence. And you ride along the fence, halt, and then as you're asking them to turn away from the wall, you're not letting them move forward. You're not, I mean, Some people will ask them to back up. I'm not big on teaching a horse to back up. I'd rather they just not walk off.
Yeah.
So I'm just asking them not to walk forward, but to just swing the front end around. So I'm putting my outside leg ahead of the girth to swing those shoulders around, and the outside rein asks the shoulders to swing. The inside rein is going to ask for a little bit of bend and a little give in the jaw, and the inside leg is a little further back, and it's just asking them to keep their hindquarters where they are. And using the wall gives you something to roll off of.
We
Oh
can use
yeah,
a
yeah.
here, we'll get our little paper
We were
here.
talking about videos. We
I
should
know.
do
I
some
need
videos when it's warmer, when
yeah.
it's warm enough for us to go outside. I can do videos with Chloe because Chloe does turn on the haunches. Like Chloe will do a turn at like at the canter. She'll do canter pirouettes for me.
That's what
Um,
I tell people is like take it up on a fence line,
yep,
right? That's going to be your fence here.
yep.
And then let's say you're riding your horse and you're going to
Come to a
ride for a
halt.
little bit.
Yeah.
And then you're going to come up to your halt, right? And then from your halt, now you're going to ask your horse with a slight inside
Outside
bend.
aids. It's your outside aids that are
You're
going
going
to
to
ask
use
the horse to
these
turn.
aids here.
Yep.
You're going to block and push the horse in that way, right?
And you're
You're
going to
going to
tell
tell the
him
horse
not
that they
to walk
can't walk
forward.
forward
Yep.
and they can't go that way. And you're going to encourage them to escape the energy out this direction, right?
Yep. Yep.
Okay. This
And
is,
you're rolling
you
off
see,
the wall. Yep.
it's
So you're
beautiful.
basically rolling back into the wall.
And
So
so,
you're
yeah, the
using that
goal
wall.
is to do this, right? And come back. But you don't want the horse's front end to just track around. The
Right.
goal really is to try to get them to take side steps. So, steps escaping that energy from the front end, while the back end stays relatively in the same place.
So another
You love this, right?
exercise,
It's
an
clear.
exercise. Yeah, it's gorgeous. An exercise that I do for turn on the haunches is to set up like a 10-meter square with cones. So you
Mm-hmm.
take 4 cones, they're 10 meters apart. They're set in a square. You ride up to a cone and you stop with the horse's back end, like hindquarters at the cone, and then you swing the front end around. Yep. Then you swing the front
Okay.
end around so it's going straight to the next
So, we're
cone.
walking up, right?
Well, you're on the outside of the cones, like you're
Oh, we're
making a
out here.
square.
Okay.
Yeah.
We're out
You're
here.
making a square. Yep. So
And
you
then right
stop at
here, I'm
that
going to
cone.
pivot.
Yep. Pivot
Okay. We
around the
stop there.
hindquarters. So the hindquarters are staying still while the front end rotates
So the
around.
butt stays, and
Yep.
then the front end has to go
Comes
all
over
the
and
way
goes straight to the
over,
next cone. Yep.
and then
Yep.
we keep
Straight to the
walking, and
next
we do the
cone.
same thing here.
Hmm.
So then our hind end is gonna stay, and
Stop
then our
and you
front
swing
end
the front end
is
around.
gonna swing around here,
Yep.
and then we
And then
keep
you walk to
tracking.
the next one. And it's
I'm gonna
all
make
about
this
you
as
can
art.
teach your horse on the ground to understand what the leg aids are for. Use a long whip and just tap tap tap, move over. You're asking your horse to move over when you're putting their blanket on. Tap tap tap,
Mhm.
move over. Use it where your leg
That's a
would be.
good point that, Carol Ann just made too. I'm running out of white paper. Using a corner also can be huge, especially when you first start this kind of an exercise,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
So you're gonna ride your horse
So
up
ride up,
into the
turn
corner,
into the corner, turn. I
and
would
then
turn and then
you would
use
have
that
them pivot,
corner. Yep, and then pivot. Yep.
and we get our butt
Then
here,
pivot. Yep.
and we're gonna work on pulling them by keeping the butt in that corner, right?
Yep. Yep.
So, and you just
Because then
need
you
a
have 2
couple of
walls.
steps.
Yeah.
So just like Carol Ann's saying here, you only need 2 steps. Just remember, guys, we're breaking down a movement. You're asking your horse now to start thinking about their body in
A
2
different
regions,
way.
right? So they've
Yeah.
got the haunches and the front end, and you're asking them to move the 2 independently. And sometimes it's for the first time, right? So all we're looking for is butt doesn't move, front end takes a step, praise. 2 steps, like that is awesome, right?
Yep.
Then we ride off. And I was talking to mom about this with DJ, and I'm a big fan, like you had mentioned. I don't think that you should push your horse to back up. I don't think that you should push your horse to do too much at once because you start to create behaviors where the horse starts escaping in the shoulder or they escape in the haunches and they
Or they
start
go
getting the
backwards.
horse,
Yeah.
yeah, or they shoot
Remember
backwards as a
sunshine?
way of
Yeah.
coping. Yeah.
Yeah.
So look for like the little tiny wins with this, and like you can work it on a straightaway and then a pivot and turn. You can do it in
Yep.
corners if you need to, but just little tiny wins, and then the horse, it starts to click, and it honestly gets really easy pretty quick, I think, for the horse.
And one of the things to remember about exercises like turn on the hunches or turn on the forehand, which is just backwards turn on the hunches, you're turning around the front end, um, is that once you do these exercises, you don't drill them And once you've done them, then you need to send your horse forward. You need to
Yes.
do some forward, 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 either a long trot, big stretchy trot, or a gallop to get them thinking forward again. You don't drill slow, stand still, backing up kind of exercises because then your horse doesn't learn to go forward. They still have to go forward. So do your turn on the haunches and trot off.
Mhm.
Do your turn on the forehand and trot off.
Yep.
Get them moving forward so
And
that they're not getting stuck.
Carol Ann has a good point here. I gotta find more blank paper. Good thing I was interviewing people today. I've got plenty here.
Yep. Left
Okay.
leg, left rein. Yep.
Yes. So this is key, guys.
Yep.
When your horse okay, this is my horse's body, and this is the booty. I'm gonna give it 2 cheeks. Okay, that's the booty. And then this is our head.
He needs
Okay.
a tail.
So this is not looking right. Let's start over, friends. Okay. This is my horse. And
It's really a
if
horse.
it's a
We
horse
believe you.
and swear. And I want to move. So this is the butt, and we want the
Yeah.
haunches to stay parked, right? But
Right.
let's
So we're
say we
turning
want to move
around the
left.
haunches.
And so
Yep.
we're going to be moving in this angle, right?
To
You're
the
going to be
right. Yep.
using outside aids to accomplish this. So if I want to go that direction, I'm going to think about pushing the horse in that direction, right? So the outside leg and the outside rein are going to be supporting, and your
And your outside leg is your left leg is going to be actually almost in front of the girth because you want the
correct.
shoulders to move.
And that's something I think people, again, we're breaking the horse down into 2 kind of like halves, right? And now we've got it, and you've also got your left and right. So you've really got them in quarters. But we're thinking about moving the horse to the left. We want to keep the energy in their haunches pretty stable, but we want that front end to be energized and moving out. And you don't want to just be pulling your horse to the left, let's say,
No, if you
because
pull,
it's going to encourage that
no,
shoulder
I
to
mean,
pop.
yeah, if you're talking about pulling to the right. So you don't want to
Yes.
grab that right
So,
rein. You almost want nothing on the right rein.
yeah,
It's the left rein. And I talk about that all the time. When you're turning, you're not using your inside rein to turn. Because
correct.
if you start pulling on that inside rein, those hindquarters are going to go flying to the outside.
Yeah,
So
inside should be
you should be
supporting
able to
and
let go of the
encouraging.
inside rein. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then the outside is going to be, and the outside rein, honestly, guys, is not to turn the horse. It's to stop the motion
It
from going
guides them.
forward.
Yeah.
It's to help guide and support. And our leg is what's telling the horse that they've got to pivot and move over.
way
You
to
might
turn.
open that rein and kind of encourage it, but it's, again, just baby steps. And once you get a little bit and the horse starts to click, then we go and we start moving out because we don't want the horse to.
We want the hind end to make a smaller circle. The
Yep.
hind end doesn't have to stay still. We just want it
Yes.
to make a smaller circle than the front end.
Yep.
So you're basically making a large half circle with the front end and a small half circle with the back end.
If you look at video of horses doing a canter pirouette, I think that's a
canter
really
pirouette is
clear
their
way of
hind
seeing
legs
it.
are moving. Yeah.
Yeah,
They have
actively. They're in
they're
that
not
small
standing
track.
still. Right.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any other questions, guys? I know
This
we're
is
already
so
at
complicated.
9:23. It's hard to
It's
describe when you
hard,
can't
yeah.
see it too.
But there's books
Exactly.
that are really, really good. Like Podolsky's book, Alois Alois Podolsky. He ran the Spanish riding school. He was there during World
Mhm.
War II. His books on dressage are some of the best books. The illustrations in those books are so helpful. But
Yeah.
another book that I want Carly to read. Carly, this is your homework. Get a copy of Centered Riding.
Yes.
You need to read Centered Riding. That will help you so much with your visualization, and you're becoming soft and lumpy.
Soft and lumpy.
Well, she talks about things like
I feel embodiment
cream.
of that right now.
Ice cream melting down your legs, like your legs becoming melting ice cream. And that's just such a good visual. Sally had such good visuals. It's just that would be that's a really good, and wintertime is a good time to find some good books.
Yep.
Yep,
So
Centered
there you
Riding. There
guys
you go.
go. That's the and actually I have this book
So do I.
somewhere. But yeah, I mean, this is an excellent book. And you're right, it really is a good time if you're going to be holed up and reading stuff. It's a
Yeah,
good time
yeah.
to start looking into some of this. but just the fundamentals of how you want to be moving your horse's body and some of those, foundations.
Well, her visualizations and her talking about, like, the way she uses, the things, like, she can just she talks about your head being a balloon and pulling your body
Mhm.
up, I mean, just so many different the visualizations.
Maybe we get it and we try to work through that. So there's so many different little tricks. I think it'd be so good for us to video when things get warmer, a little bit warmer, and
Oh,
we
yeah.
bring horses back in. But there's a lot of those tricks, turn on the haunches, turn on the forehand, setting a horse up for foundational turn in mounted games, half
And
halts.
so when we're talking about things like turn on the forehand and turn on the hunches, they're also useful in keeping your horse straight for things like
Correct.
balloon.
Yep.
If your horse respects your leg, they'll stay straight for balloon.
Yeah.
They won't run out sideways.
And supporting a horse, that's spooking, or horses that, like you were saying, don't want to go across the creek. The more that they respect all of those foundational aids, the easier it's going to be to get through those
Yep.
situations. Well, guys, it is 9:26.
Sorry.
No, you're good.
Okay.
Kim, I do want to get good enough to ride without a bridle. And it really is. It comes down to riding bridleless is just a lot of those other aids
Yep.
just built on to the point where you feel really confident with your horse. I'm trying to see if I got to all the comments here. Oh, there's one Carol Ann put. I currently have a very nice mare that I was hoping to use on the hunt field and jumping. As it turns out, she's super chicken over fences, yet she's doing great with games and dressage and being pregnant. At least someone is. Too tall for me for games, so it leaves me to either keep her and not jump like my dreams or become a DQ.
Oh, she's a really nice little Connemara mare. Yeah.
Embrace the DQ and
Yeah.
then use it. Oh,
Oh,
that's too funny. Kimberly. Carol Ann, so take your bridle off, Kimberly.
exactly. Yeah.
I know. How else are you gonna get there?
Yep.
Honestly, even though Carol Ann has said do it, I would suggest you put a neck rope on your horse and
Yeah.
you maybe
Yeah.
start there. We've got a backup. All right, you guys, it is now almost 9:30 p.m. on Wednesday. Thank you so much for joining us. Next week, Carly will be back, and I think we might have another guest. And then, Joy, we'd love to have you back in late
Oh,
February so we can
sure.
start talking about legging up our horses for the season.
Yeah.
That'll be
Yeah.
a blast. And Carol Ann, I'm going to reach out to you offline too, because I think it'd be pretty fun to have you on here as
Yeah.
well. We can
Yeah.
get you. So,
And we should try
public
to order
pressure.
some videos that we can
Yes.
show. Yeah.
Yeah. No, definitely. Especially like I said, as it gets a little bit warmer and a
Yeah.
little bit less sloppy, we just don't have a great place
No.
to ride, and the truck's been in the shop. So definitely have a good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for watching. Like and subscribe, and join us next week on Wednesday Night Live at 8:15. Look forward to seeing you. Thank you again, Joy, for joining us. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah, bye.
Bye.